And now, the survival show that once survived, agreeing with the wife another woman was attractive. Terrible idea. In this episode, Josh drops back by to discuss building up the best prepper gun battery on a small budget. Howdy and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 231. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Josh, welcome back to In the Rabbit Hole.
Hey, thanks, man. It's fun to be here.
I know, we're having an exciting time. We just had Robert, one of the Armada members, was here trimming out the window and doing some work in the studio and did an awesome job. Thank you again, Robert, for that.
It looks really, really good, even though you haven't painted yet.
I haven't, but that has been driving me absolutely nuts. And if I tried to do trim, it would be I'd turn a 3-hour project into a 3-day project. So
yeah, you probably would. You'd be out here with a micrometer.
I would. I've got my calipers over there. I'd be like pulling them out. And so, yeah, today we're not going to be talking about construction. We are going to be talking about budget guns. This was an audience requested episode, and it was a good one. I think we thought about doing it a long time ago, and it just fell through the cracks of episode ideas, but somebody brought it up, and I thought it was a really good one. It's not, I'm going to admit, budget guns aren't really my thing. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I like nice toys, and I do okay. And so I tend to buy the best I can of things, but I do definitely see and understand the need of not everybody can go out and drop, $1,000 or $2,000 or more on an AR or on a rifle, or, go buy a $3,500 Nighthawk custom 1911 or something like that. And then again, that's not going to be the gun you carry every day, most likely. But before we actually get into recommending budget guns, we should start off with talking about, and this will make sense in a minute. We should start off by talking about what is a prepper to begin with. And a prepper is a person who prepares, right? I mean, yeah, all right, Aaron, obviously you're being a dumbass. No, what we mean by that is, but you're not just preparing for the zombie apocalypse. You're preparing and taking personal ownership and personal responsibility for things to go wrong. And what is more likely than the zombie apocalypse is that you're going to be in some sort of violent encounter and want to defend yourself. And this goes back to the very old rule we've had around here for forever, the 80% rule of do the things that are going to make your life safer, more secure, and more sound in the here and now. And those same things will get you 80% of the way in the zombie platypus attack. So with that being said, the other caveat that Josh, you brought up while we were sitting here talking, which is, and then we'll get into the budget part of this, the budget discussion of this is, if you just own a bunch of crap, then it's just crap. And it's like we're preparing because we want to be responsible and take responsibility for our own lives and our own safety. And if you have garbage equipment, it's going to fail you. So what we're not going to do today is be like, oh, well, you can buy this, $100 gun. And it's like, well, yeah. So we're going to try to get that razor thin line between the budget stuff that are still good guns and the garbage that you just spent money on just to have something. And that's not really the right approach, I don't think. So let's talk about, as far as budgeting goes, you had some great thoughts on it, Josh. That's where you even begin with it in a matter of, starting off and setting a budget in mind because you're going to trust your life with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sorry, I'm still thinking about zombie platypuses.
I know, it's very weird.
It's a totally new genre I haven't even thought about before. So now my mind is open to that, and I've got something else to worry about now. So, so yeah, absolutely. Going back to talking about what is a prepper and all these things. So you're preparing for some sort of adversity. Mm. And when I think about that, I think of it's not just an idea. It's sort of like a lifestyle. You hear a lot of people say that, right? But it's really more than that. You kind of have to think of it from an all-encompassing approach to the idea of what am I doing day to day or in my whole life? Is my 5-year plan or whatever, is that factored into that idea? Mm. So for me, like I budget as much as I can when everything's going well, hopefully. And then whenever things aren't going well, you've got a budget there to help you with that, right? Mm. If you're really worried about having to buy a new firearm, or you're really looking at buying something in the future, or you're needing to upgrade, for a lot of things we're going to talk about today, there's really not much of a price difference. I mean, we're talking usually a couple $100 in there between the budget guns and the stuff that's really, really, either not necessarily top of the line, but good quality equipment that's going to last you. Like you, I don't go to the extremes that you do as far as some of the gear that you have, which is littering the studio here, which looks really nice and shiny. But I absolutely believe in the buy once, cry once kind of idea.
Yeah.
Not saying I'm going to go out and buy, like you mentioned, a custom made Nighthawk pistol. Nothing wrong with those. But those are kind of showy for what I want. I prefer a decent handgun, something along the lines of like a Glock or a Smith & Wesson or something along those lines that work well for me, and that I literally have no problems about using myself, and it's going to last, right? So, but I budget for that. And here's the other thing that people don't think about is, in the future, are you going to want anything else? Are you going to want something more? Do you need to be buying stuff for not just you, but for other members of your family or your friends, the people that are going to be around you when some sort of adversity hits? Did they all subscribe to this one idea of this one firearm? Glocks are pretty ubiquitous. And so let's just use it as an example. But if all of my neighbors own Glocks, I might decide not to buy that SIG because we use different components and magazines. And if something crazy were going to happen, do I want to have that ability to have part interchangeability? If I get in their car, they're going to have spare Glock mags in there or spare SIG mags. Well, they're going to have spare Glock mags.
Yeah. More of the team mentality.
The team mentality, right. So, I mean, it's just kind of an all-encompassing approach and a thought. There's more than just saying, hey, what's the cheapest thing that I can buy that'll get me around the corner?
Yeah.
Right.
We've laid the groundwork on that. And I think the next question is, what really is the budget? I mean, I think in general, we talk about the prepper battery, which is 4 guns.
Right.
And I think it becomes, if I was going to start my battery and funds were limited, personally, it depends on the area you're in. I would start with a pistol because that's the thing I'm going to carry every day. Again, we're not preparing for the zombie apocalypse. We're preparing for every day that gets us through the crazy, that can also get us through the crazy stuff down the road. So I would personally start with a pistol. And I think my next thing would be a shotgun. And then I would move on down the road. The bolt action, the semi-auto rifle, and then the 22. If that's all I was doing, if that's all I was concerned about, not throwing hunting and other things into the mix, where would you land with that?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that. You've obviously thought about the methodology and the thought process behind what would I need. So the majority, if you look at statistics in the U.S. as far as crime rates or defense situations with use with firearms, it's primarily a handgun. And so that is 9 times out of 10 what you're going to be using or carrying with you on a day-to-day basis. So I always have a handgun with me. If I'm allowed to, I always have it with me. And so if I'm ever encountered with a violent situation again, I'm going to have that handgun with me. So in my mind, that's where I'm going to spend the majority of my first thought process is looking at the handgun. What is it that I want to have? What is it that I need to have? What is it that feels comfortable for me? And as far as my budget goes, I'm definitely going to be sinking my money into a handgun because, again, that's going to be the thing that you primarily have on hand the majority of the time.
Yeah, and I think the next thing, and I think these two things are interchangeable because, if you're not somebody that is going to, or if you're not in a region or a place where you can have a handgun and carry it with you all the time, there is the flip side that having a shotgun for home defense. So in that instance, if that's all you're going to have it for, then a shotgun might make more sense for your first purchase. Thankfully, shotguns tend to be you can get crazy with shotguns, but you can get really crazy with shotguns. But shotguns in general tend to be a pretty inexpensive first purchase. In a lot of cases, actually cheaper than a handgun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want, we just go ahead and dive right into kind of the first shotguns.
Yeah, let's get in there. And I do quickly want to say thanks to Pierce. Pierce helped me with a great list of guns here and I think it ended up, you looked at it, you were like, oh yeah, that's pretty much all the same guns I would have said too.
Yeah, no, he's got some good notes here. And Pierce is a member of the Armada Group. For anybody that doesn't know him, he's a nice guy. He works a little bit in the firearm industry, so he kind of has an idea and the insider view of some things. And he had some really good thoughts too whenever we did for those that aren't in the Armada, but we did a private group thing for the victims of Harvey. And we did a sort of like an after action report. So the first one that Pierce and I both had on the list was obviously it's the most ubiquitous one. It is a Mossberg Maverick 88. So it's sort of like a Mossberg 500 shotgun.
Okay.
It's assembled here in Texas, but it's made from parts that some parts of that come from Mexico, which is the reason why it's a little cheaper.
Oh, okay.
The metal is pretty much the same thing, but the finish is a little different from a Mossberg 500. And it doesn't have the same ambidextrous on top of the thumb safety. It's got a cross bolt safety, sort of like a Remington 870. So, but usually you can find that under $200 or right around the $200 mark. I know Martin Armory has them.
Yeah.
And so they come in a few different varieties. The standard one comes in like a 28-inch barrel, rib barrel. And then they also have a security model, which is like an 18.5 or 20-inch barrel.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
And Pierce had a really cool point, which was you can buy the model with the 28-inch barrel and then later call up Mossberg and actually order the shorter security size barrel. And then you have those two options. And I think he said the security barrel was like $120.
Yeah.
So, and that's something you can do later on down the road. Because I wouldn't really, not that you couldn't, but I really wouldn't use a 28-inch barrel for doing home defense.
No, I wouldn't either. I have a Mossberg 500 20 gauge that I got when I was a kid. And it's got that long, hunting barrel on it.
Yeah.
And so, a few years ago, I was like, I really want to look for a smaller barrel for this. And I looked around and sure enough, Mossberg had the same thing he's talking about. So called up Mossberg, ordered it, and it was at my house in a week and $100 and something. And it's great. So now I've got like a small 20 gauge that my wife can shoot. I mean, she's pretty happy with that. So, it's fun.
Yeah.
The other cool thing about the Maverick 88 is that it's pretty interchangeable with the parts for the Mossberg 500.
Oh, that's cool. So you can do
change
upgrades to it later.
Yeah, you can change out the stocks, the barrels.
Yeah.
You can change out the magazine tube. All of them fit the Mossberg 500. Or they're the same as the Mossberg 500.
Is it pretty easy to swap barrels on the thing?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty simple. So basically you just undo the front of the tube magazine, unscrews, and then you kind of pump the action halfway, and then the barrel just pops right off.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, so the standards for the shotguns pretty much are going to be your Mossberg 500 and the Remington 870.
Yeah.
I mean, in those usually $500-$600, somewhere in that ballpark. You can go low, you can go high. As you know, you can deck them out. And I mean, I've seen $2,000 shotguns before.
Yeah.
Just standard. Now you want to talk about custom shotguns?
Yeah, we start getting into different stuff, and you can get into the tens of thousands of dollars doing side by sides and over and unders. And
I think James Price saw one time he wanted to buy after a contract, and it was like $45,000. He's like, "Talk me out of it, Josh. Talk me out of it."
For all that skeet shooting that James does.
Yes, naturally. Riding shotgun, rolling down the streets of Iraq with a $45,000 shotgun. I could totally see him doing it too.
That would be freaking hysterical. And I think to do a brief talk about 20 versus 12, I've got a 20 and I've got a 12. And I do think the 20 is much more manageable for smaller framed people. I think TV in Hollywood gives 12 gauges too much credit. I don't find them to be that bad, but I'm a medium sized guy. So for me, a 12 gauge is like, unless we start talking about using 12 gauge slugs in a short barrel, that's the only time it becomes very uncomfortable.
Yeah, 3-inch Magnum load.
Yeah, those aren't fun in a short barrel, but 20 has a lot of appeal. The only problem I ever found with 20 was it was harder to find a variety of defensive ammo. At least that was my experience with the 20. What did you find that same thing, or do you find 20 to actually be, and I didn't do a tremendous amount of searching for it. Did you find 20 to be easier to find defensive ammo for it?
So it's not so much defensive ammo. I really just kind of look at the ammo loads. There's a lot of different testing, and there's actually recently in the last few years, there's been a lot of people kind of revisiting the idea of a 20 gauge for a home defense situation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people found what I found was that number 4 buck works really well for sort of a home defense situation. It gives a good spread. It's got a really good velocity for a standard length barrel, especially if it's a little longer of a length. And that works well. I like it because like you just said, smaller frame people. So I've got zero qualms with leaving it there. All the people in my family are trained with it, from the kids up to the adults. Everybody knows how to use it. Like I said, it's got an ambidextrous safety on it, which I really like. All the controls you can reach with either hand. And it's also got that, even it doesn't matter if it's a 20 gauge or a 12 gauge, but that sound of racking a shotgun.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious what's going on behind that door.
It's very distinctive. I don't think there's many people in, at least in the US, that don't know the sound of racking a shotgun. Even if you're not a gun person, you know what that sound means.
Right. Which is kind of a problem if you leave one loaded, because then you're going to rack around and drop one out. So it just kind of depends on, if what you want to do. and what the situation dictates. But no, so I mean, as far as 12 and 20 gauge, I like both. I think 12 gauge is a much more capable gun. If you're going to buy one shotgun, it's got to be a 12 gauge because, like we said, you can change out the barrels. You can go bird hunting. You could use it for home defense. You could go deer hunting with it. So it's a long idea as to what to go with. But I really think that the first gun you should buy would be a 12 gauge shotgun if you're not allowed to have a pistol where you're at or carry a pistol.
Yeah. We'll be back after this quick break. Things are pretty quiet in the gun community right now. There's no crazy laws coming out or big new calls for gun control. And gun owners like myself are feeling pretty safe and pretty good about things right now, pretty optimistic. But you never know when the next gun-grabbing bonanza is going to start driving prices sky high and inventories crazy low because every Tom, Dick, and Harry decides that's the moment they need a gun, right? Now, we're really big on skills over gear around here, but sometimes pieces of gear just can't be beaten. And that's where a gun fits into your preparedness plans. This usually brings up where to get the best deal with the least BS, because gun buying can be just a headache. You should try martinarmory.com. They were founded with a simple goal, to make buying a gun simple and affordable. And instead of carrying thousands of different guns, they only carry 25. This is kind of crazy, but it allows them to focus on providing the most popular guns on the market at the very lowest prices. Now, for a limited time, I2RH listeners get a little something extra. You get free shipping. Simply go to martinarmory.com, pick out a gun, and enter the promo code RABBITHOLE at checkout. Again, that's martinarmory.com. Enter the promo code RABBITHOLE at checkout. Listener, do you get at least $3 a month worth of value out of I2RH? You should see what we do for the Roving Horde Armada members. Check it out today by visiting i2rh.net. Members get access to episodes a day early, access to monthly virtual and in-person meetups in some areas, an invitation to the secret I2RH Armada Facebook group so you can chat about survival all day long with like-minded people. Access to every episode ever produced by I2RH. That's right, all the way back to the beginning, including one that was never aired. And those are just a few things you get with your membership when you sign up and become part of the I2RH Roving Horde by going to i2rh.net. Again, that's i2rh.net. Speaking of pistols, moving on to pistols.
Cool.
So let's start with, and I think this also goes back to, and we're going to get into this more towards once we've run through the guns, but so like when I look at Glocks or something like that, and you're talking about a gun in the, I mean, you can get more expensive, but you're talking about a gun in the $500 range. There's still used stuff, and we're going to get into used gun buying in a bit. But I think when you look at guns, don't just immediately price guns based on, especially if you're in the budget mindset, don't just price stuff based on what's brand new. So, but again, we'll get into that more in a bit. But to start off with like true, like the budget guns, the cheapest semi-autos that somebody could still trust their life with. Number one on Pierce's list was the Smith & Wesson SD9 VE. He was hyper specific about that. Can be found for around $230 to $300 if you hunt around a bit. It's a solid 9mm pistol. You get 2 mags with it. They're extremely reliable, and 9mm is very plentiful and a very approachable round for most people. It's easy to shoot, and it's not expensive, especially unless something really happens with the Vegas stuff to throw ammo out of whack again, which I don't think it will. I think it might, but I think 9mm is really the way to go with that, especially if you're trying to stay budget conscious. That was the first on the list. What do you got on your list over there?
Yeah, so the Smith & Wesson, the SD9 VE, like you said, is the lower end Smith & Wessons are probably some of the most prolific budget firearms as far as semi-auto handguns out there. I mean, a lot of my friends that I grew up with in high school, that was like one of the first pistols they bought. And I was like, well, why? And they said, well, it's cheap. And I was like, well, okay. But is that really the best reason?
Yeah.
They're like, it doesn't matter. I said, okay. But they've, Smith & Wesson in their SD9 versions and different ones, they've had kind of a checkered past as some of the other ones on our bottom barrel list here, or at least these are more of the bottom barrel picks as far as they go. But, you know, will they work? Yeah, they will. But the SD9 VE, Smith & Wesson kind of took back to the drawing board, came back fixed a lot of the same problems or some of the problems they've had in some of the other models, and they came back with this one. So if I remember correctly, it's a double action only. I mean, it's got about an 8-pound trigger pull, but it's a full size handgun. It's got a 16 round mag. Like you said, you can find them for the mid to high 200s, somewhere in that ballpark. 4-inch barrel, and it's really probably one of the better ones that I would like. If somebody handed one to me and said, "Here you go," I say, "Yeah, okay, that's all I got. That's what I've got," and I wouldn't be too worried about it working.
Mm-hmm. Next one we have on the list here is the Century Arms Canik TP9 series, another 9mm. Can be found for similar price range, about $280 to $333. Very reliable pistol, made in Turkey. It had some teething issues, but apparently they've worked them out. Pierce personally has one, and I think he had some early troubles with it, but apparently they have fixed that. Comes with 2 17-round magazines, and he says it has an excellent trigger for the budget-minded pistol. I'm actually surprised he put that one on the list because I remember watching him have problems with it.
Yeah.
But now the caveat here is he didn't just have a one-off experience with this. He's dealing with these things all day, every day. So he sees them leave the store and then come back to the store, the bad ones. So that's a nice experience to have with this. But as he's saying, they fixed the problems with it. And apparently it's a good budget gun.
Yeah. So, I mean, I trust his opinion on that. I haven't personally dealt with them, but I've seen a lot of people, internet personalities in the gun world and other people that I know personally, like Pierce, that have bought these pistols because they're a good looking pistol. They look really nice. They've got, the accessory rail on it, like most modern polymer pistols do. And it's got some cool features to it. So yeah, they did. They had some teething issues like a lot of these other ones, like I said, mentioned on the list do, but they've come back, they've worked on them, they fixed them, and they have reasonably accessible magazines. Pretty much anybody that sells the gun has the mags for it. They've been pretty good about that, so they're not super hard to find. Because that's something I worry about, right? Because I might have 1 or 2 pistols, but I'm gonna have a dozen mags.
Right, and I think we were talking about that a little bit. Actually, right before we started recording, we were talking about I bought a really nice LMT AR-10. And I had sold off 2 other rifles to put because I was trying to shrink the number that I had and consolidate and put that money into nicer stuff.
You're a crazy gun person.
I am a crazy gun person. But the other gun in 308 that I was looking at that was comparable accuracy and other things was the Scar. And the biggest problem I had with the Scar was the price of magazines. I was just like, no, I'm out. They're not as easy to find as AR-10 magazines, and they were, well, I think they were like $50 a piece or something like that.
50.
As opposed to paying like $15-20 a piece for PMags for an AR-10. I was just like, yeah,
but it shoots really nice, man. So
does my LMT. I mean, I'm just like,
we'll have to take ours both out to the range one day and kind of just like have a little shoot off. And
there you go.
Hand hold each other and have fun. So
sweet. So, and I think as long as we're talking about semi-autos, we can jump into semi-autos here. But actually, I think before we jump into semi-autos, I'm trying to think of where I really land with, if I was building up a gun battery, would I get a semi-auto rifle first or a semi-auto 22 first? That's kind of tough. Because I mean, on one hand, we're talking about what's practical and what can you use in the here and now to do things with versus what is zombie thinking. I may still say go with the 22 because you have your personal defense covered. Let's all be realistic here and put our big kid thinking caps on. To be realistic, most people are going to go to their handgun or their shotgun for personal defense. So we're not talking about I need my AR-15 for zombie apocalypse survival yet. I may actually go say if I was going to stage this out, I would probably go with the 22 next. Because with the 22, the ammo is very cheap. You're talking about 5 cents a round to shoot 22, 11 cents a round if you're shooting subsonics. You can get into much more expensive 22 ammo, but you're talking about competition ammo at that point. I think that's not something that the budget-minded person is going to start getting into with it. But I would roll with the 22 first. So actually, I'm going to segue. That was a terrible segue off into the 22, and that leads with the Ruger 1022, which I am a huge fan of the Ruger 1022. and those can be found at the lowest. You're going to find them at about $180. These are all brand new prices to about, some of the more tricked out ones you'll spend about $300 on. The magazines are very plentiful.
Mhm.
They're pretty easy to find. They're not super cheap, but they're not super expensive either. I think I didn't do a great job and didn't look at this exactly. Didn't look up the you did look up the magazine price. How much are the magazines?
So if you want to go with like the bigger round count mags, you're looking at your SCAR pricing of around $50.
Yeah, which those are junk magazines anyway.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy those.
I wouldn't. I'd stick with the standard around the 8 to 10 round mags, and then maybe the 20s tops or 30s. But I mean, like, you wouldn't want to go any much higher than that. They're kind of gimmicky at that point.
Yeah, I've had to replace older Ruger 1022 10 round magazines, but that was back when I was shooting and buying 22 ammo by the 5,000 round case and blowing at least a brick a weekend. And I mean, I was using and abusing those magazines. Most of them worked just fine for a long time. I think new the 10 rounds are like $20 or something.
Yeah,
like
they
that.
were somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not too crazy.
No, they're good little mags. So, and I think that's something that if you start there, you have a rifle that's approachable from a price standpoint. It's approachable from a usability standpoint. You're much better off if you're a new shooter or anything like that, learning with a 22. You can use a lot of ammo. It's cheap ammo to get your accuracy down. Which, I mean, this is a big reason why Appleseed, the entire thing is shot 22s. You can shoot other stuff, but the recommendation is a 22. The Marlin is also a really good 22. I had a buddy that shot one, and you're shaking your head over there. Is that on your list of?
Yeah, I have a Marlin as well. The model 795 you can find pretty reasonably priced. It's got a 10-shot mag, and so you can do all sorts of stuff. But you can find them for around $145 new.
Oh wow,
somewhere in that ballpark. But they're really good. They also have a tubular mag fed one, which is pretty reasonably priced as well. I've got one of those. They work really well. I've never had a problem with them. They're less prolific than the 1022, I think, but the 1022 has so much more aftermarket accessories that you can get for it later down the line. I mean, you were talking they can go up in price, and they can, but like they've just introduced in the last few years, they've introduced the 1022 takedown.
Oh yeah, that's a sexy little.
It's kind of cool. So you can, it breaks in half, right where the barrel meets the frame, and you can put it in a backpack, and things super short. I think Magpul even has a stock for it now.
Yep, they do.
So they've got all sorts of new cool toys. So, if you started with that one and then you build out the rest of your list or whatever you want to do, then you could go back to this one and really accessorize it, make it whatever you want, And
I think I remember looking at the breakdowns. They weren't really expensive. I mean, we're talking, you're coughing up an extra $50, I think.
I think you're still right underneath or right at the $300 mark. So you're talking, an extra $100.
Yeah, I think when I looked at them, I think they were about $250, and I was thinking about getting one, but I was still like, no, I was doing my safe. My safe was on a diet.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, no, I
just
must
need a bigger safe. That's the problem.
No.
I mean, you're in Texas and all. Just everything's bigger in Texas.
Exactly. No, I was looking at I wanted my gun safe to go on a diet, and then after that I was going to kind of rebuild things.
You guys hear this? Don't trust this guy. He wants his gun safe to go on a diet. Who says that?
I was trying to so to totally go on a tangent here. I was trying to go to everything in the safe had to be stuff that was getting shot at least once every 4 months. I started off at least once a year, and then I worked it down to once every 4 months. So that is why the safe was on a diet. I don't know exactly why I went on this, but I decided this was a project, and we rolled with it. We didn't question ourselves.
Well, he'll remain nameless, but I know a guy in the tactical gear world that runs one of the big companies, and I've been to his house. He has like the best garage ever. You walk in and it's literally industrial grade shelving all the way around, and everything is organized in ammo cans and crates.
Yeah.
And he has narrowed himself down to 4 calibers, and that's all the calibers he owns. That's it. So everything is in those calibers he matches, and it all looks really sexy through there. He didn't go on a diet, but everything is organized at least down to those calibers. And, this, I guess I'll just say it, but this kind of goes into the idea of what we're talking about with the prepper gun battery. Is that, I like things to be of the same caliber, right? So I've moved from my pocket carry gun is now a 9mm. So, because I used to have a 380, and I got rid of that because I didn't want another caliber that I had to keep buying ammo for. And also the price of 380 is retarded.
Yeah.
But for what it is. I can buy 9mm much cheaper and it's better. So that's what I went to. So all of my stuff I've tried to. So I guess in a way I've kind of gone on a diet myself. It was a caliber diet.
Well, that was part of really what I was doing. Like I had a 30-06. I don't shoot 30-06, but I do shoot 308. So I was like, well, I don't need this 30-06 rifle. And it was 357 SIG. Well, I don't really shoot I like shooting. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy the round, but I don't shoot it. So got rid of that. 40. Nope. Don't need that either. So I don't know that it was necessarily, maybe that's how that started now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe I was just trying to whittle down my calibers to about 4. I think that may have been what I was trying to do.
See, I help you remember. There you go.
Yeah, I'm getting losing my noodle in my old age.
There you go.
So I think we've covered out 22. So let's move on to the semi-auto rifle. The AR-15 is pretty much where we're going to go with the semi-auto. ARs have gotten, I don't know what's going to happen after the Vegas stuff, as we've said before, prices, who knows. But with the previous Obama era glut, everybody ramped up production to just crazy levels. So we've gotten really good AR-15s that have really come down in price a lot. Like some of the prices I'm seeing now are just insane. When the problem I have had, I did buy one budget AR, and I'm going to go ahead and call it out. It was a Radical Firearms. And actually, I do not know anyone in the gun industry that I have talked to that doesn't immediately just like make a dirty face when you say that. And I bought it because I wanted a fun little 300 blackout gun. It was going to be a project hobby gun. And the thing just crapped the bed. It was, I would have been, because I was like, oh, I'm thinking about this Noveski. And then it was like, no, I'm going to try and just get a budget. And I made the wrong choice in that. I should have looked around a little bit more before I did that. It was terrible. I ended up it was so bad. What was wrong with it was dangerous. I replaced every part in it except the receiver, the upper receiver and the lower receiver, which I wouldn't have done, but I had already filled out my Form 1 paperwork for the lower. So it was good lower there. Somebody else made it. I am forever tethered to that lower, but I don't think that's not necessarily the case if you stay with some of the bigger brands. And I think the option that Pearson mentioned here was the Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 2. Mm-hmm. It's great. You can get them for under $600.
Yep.
And there's a lot of states now and a lot of stuff where you are allowed to hunt with an AR-15. So, and it's a good gun. I think an AR-15 is actually a pretty good gun for a new shooter. They're easy to understand. They're easy to disassemble. They're easy to clean for the most part. I mean, until you start getting down into the stupid springs that shoot out and try to take your eye out, but or get bent or do weird things. But I think if you were going to go that direction, that's the way to go with that. There are a couple other brands, but the one recommended here is Smith & Wesson M&P. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Smith & Wesson M&P is probably one of the better lower end guns, if not the best lower end gun that you could get. And honestly, I'd say that the quality that Smith & Wesson puts into those M&Ps is, pretty much, I'm not going to say top of the line, but it's not bad at all. I would have zero problems owning one and shooting one. I don't. I've got a lot of friends that have them. They work well. I've never seen one like totally fall apart or break or anything like that. I mean, normal AR stuff, but nothing crazy. One of the other brands that I would recommend that is, I'd say it's a little bit of a lesser quality than a Smith & Wesson M&P, but it's not bad, is the DPMS brand. And, they've got some good stuff. They do. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people knock on them in the industry because they are a lower end version.
Yeah.
But they're not going to blow up on you. I mean, and this is, unless you're shooting crappy reload ammo.
Yeah.
That is double charged and all that other fun stuff.
Well, and I think the caveat there too is the gun industry as a whole gets to kind of put a warning label on things, especially when you're reading it. A lot of the times when you're reading that stuff and they're talking about using it in a professional setting.
Right.
They're talking about running it through mud. They're talking about running 10,000 rounds through it. They're talking about, can I go into battle with this thing? And now we're starting to get off into zombie apocalypse land where, yeah, sure, it would be great to have an AR-15 that can do all those things and get up and make me toast in the morning. But you know what? If I'm on a budget, I don't need the absolute end-all, be-all, end-of-the-world rifle. Or not necessarily need is maybe not the right word, but it's just not realistic. So, and it's always something that can be upgraded later. There is a wonderful aftermarket for guns, used guns. So,
absolutely. The standard AR usually costs somewhere between $800 to $1,200, I would say, on like mid to high end, and then of course you can go into like really nice ARs that are up to $2,000 or more even. But yeah, I mean, we're talking like an entry level type thing, right? And so you're right. A lot of people in the gun world, they look at something and say, well, this isn't military spec. Well,
right.
no, it's not. And the funny thing about military spec, remember, they're all made by the lowest bidder.
Right.
So just keep that in mind when you look at things. But there are some considerations. There are some parts on modern ARs that are either commercial or military spec, like the buffer tubes and some other things. But no, they look at them from like a law enforcement standard. A lot of law enforcement agencies throughout the US have certain brands they will allow. And usually that, like, the lowest end brand on that is like a Colt, right? And so they have different standards than the civilian population for these things. You're not going to go buy a DPMS, Oracle AR at, $500 and take it and run it in the military or on a contract overseas for 3 years and expect the thing to hold up. Like, it's just not going to do that.
Yeah.
But that being said, that's not what we're asking it to do either. We're asking it to sit in safe, take a range day here and there, enjoy it, have some fun with it, maybe take it hunting, shoot a few rounds every hunting season, take it to the range, let the kids play with it, that kind of thing. That's what we're talking about. These things don't necessarily have to be the super duper high end slick shit that you're going to get everywhere else.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think the other reason for sticking with the AR, if you're looking in the budget guns for a semi-auto rifle, one of my big points for that is parts availability. There's 1,000,001 companies out there making good parts for the AR. You can upgrade the parts to your, I mean, that AR I had that crapped the bed, I mean, the two of the more expensive parts on it were fine. I just had to replace some of the cheaper parts on it. And then it was fine. And so they're the Legos of the gun world. They really are. The other nice thing is the magazines for them. We go back to that. Magazines are pretty cheap. Magazines are very available. You can get Magpul 25 and 30 round magazines for these things for on sale for like $12.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You can, just like the 1022 earlier, these things you can upgrade, you can make the parts better, you can change all these different things out. I mean, literally the metal frame, the lower and the upper, I've had, let's see, what did I have? I had a Olympic A2. The thing looked like an M16 A2. It was like a clone, right? And I literally stripped that whole thing off and made it into this really, really nice combat rifle. I mean, the thing is super slick. It works really well. Never had a problem with it, but I changed everything in that except for, I think, the detent spring for the safety and the lower itself. Everything else is completely different. So, and you can do that. You can absolutely do that. And we'll go into a little bit more, but you could build one of these things from the parts up too, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So, but one of the other brands that's pretty reasonable is the Ruger 5.56 ARs. They're pretty reasonable. They're around that same price point that we were talking about with the other ones. So just stick to the name brands. If you can go and you could buy it at your local sporting goods place, it'll probably be okay. Don't go shopping online for the cheapest thing that you can find.
Yeah. So, and I think moving on to bolt action rifles, and I think this goes back to when we're talking about the order in which, or at least the order in which I would do things. This is the order in which I would do things. I want to reiterate that. Do things in whatever order makes sense for you. I'm not a big hunter. So for me, a bolt action rifle is going to be a target gun. So for me, it's not a priority. So with that said, it would be last on my list, but for you, that may be different. And we've got here the Savage Axis X Bolt Action 308 can be found for between $299 and as much as $300 if you shop around. They can get a little bit more expensive with that. And it even comes with a 3-9 by 40 cheap Chicom scope. You put cheap Chicom scope. But, that's scope you don't have to buy.
Yep. Says it right there for you.
Yeah. So they're highly accurate. And I think Savage doesn't get enough love, I think, in the industry.
Oh, no, they don't.
Everyone I know that picks up a Savage will tell you, like, they are ridiculously accurate, especially at the price point that you're talking about. And you can even get this thing in the 6.5 Creedmoor now. And you've got a 700-yard gun for $300. Although that Chicom scope isn't going to take you out to 700 yards very well. But, there you go.
No, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. As far as the order, I'd change my order up a little bit personally for me. Before I get a 22, I'd get an AR because I've got some pretty good pellet rifles. So that kind of changes that for me. So the 22 for me would be last on the list. And then this rifle would be up next after that. But, to each their own, different people, different strokes, different folks. But I think what we're going through here is probably going to work for like 95% of everybody.
Yeah.
So as far as the Savage Axis XP rifles, yeah, they're good. On the XP models, I don't think they have their accurized trigger or whatever it is like they do on the regular Axis models. They did cut one or two parts out to afford to put the scope in there.
Yeah.
And also, but be aware, the scope could break. I mean, like, I don't know either. But to me, for that price point, it's really good. What did we say it was, around 280 or something like that?
Yeah, I think the low end was 270 and then the high was like 3 and change.
Yeah, so like around 280, 290, somewhere in that ballpark. I mean, like entry level scopes that are that price. So, and you're getting a whole rifle for that. But that being said, since there's a scope mounted, so it's got scope mounts, or it's drilled ready for scope mounts to be put into it. So if you wanted to replace that, that's a really easy fix. And it may not even be the scope. I know that one of the things that I don't go cheap on are scope mounts because to me, scopes are usually built okay, but the scope mounts are a whole different story. So, but yeah, the Savage Axis XP, the Savage Axis, I know that's around the same price point, I think, but they don't have the scopes with it. It does come with the better trigger on it. It's adjustable, if I remember right. They come with synthetic stock and they are tapped for scope mounts, and they have a detachable box magazine in these, so you can take them out, put a new one in, that kind of thing. They're small, but I think they only hold like 4 rounds or something like that.
Yeah, and that's something well enough. Like if you weren't going for absolute cheapest, you could take it a hair step up, and you can even get a second scope like a Vortex Optics makes really great. They make they're making high end or higher end, I should say, optics now. But when they start off really in the lower end. But their low end stuff is still like really good, fairly inexpensive scopes. And now you've got 2 scopes. You can take this Chicom one and stick it in a box, and if something happens to your nicer scope, and again, this is back to sort of similar to that AR concept of you can upgrade parts to it over time.
Yeah, you can. One of the other brands of scopes that I like is for entry level is Primary Arms, and they are made in China, but they're a U.S. based company. They're based here out of Houston, Texas, or nearby. And they've got a really good quality control. If they don't, their customer service makes up for it.
Yeah, and they do have an excellent customer service that takes care of problems.
They do. Some of the other ones that I wanted to mention on here was the Ruger American series of rifles. It's about $100 more. It's about $380 in that ballpark. But they're really nice. They kind of run along the same line as the Axis, but I personally think they feel more solid to me.
Okay.
But let me say that the Axis is a solid rifle. It will shoot. The Ruger feels a little bit more solid. Doesn't mean that the Axis isn't. The Savage isn't. Just I like that one too. But I think both of them are really, really good. And you're talking about $100 difference there, so it's not that much. But I think most of the sporting goods places and all that carry these, so you can go try them out, play with them, cycle the action, see if you like it and that kind of thing. It doesn't come with the scope, so that's something you got to consider. But yeah, I think that the bare bones basic I would be the Savage Axis XP with the scope on there.
Yeah. We also have on here the Remington 783 in 308, and it ranges in price from $300 to $350. And it also comes with a cheap starter 3-9 scope, which is pretty cool. It's a spinoff of the Remington 700 series, but built for more budget minded. And it comes in flat dark earth, which Pierce says is cool. I'll take your word. I'm just teasing. Again, decent accuracy out of the box. It's a 308. It has an adjustable trigger. And you don't see many rifles in that price range. You really don't. And I think the other thing to think of with 308 is you're looking at practice ammo. You're looking at about 50 cents a round. And with premium ammo, you start dipping your toe in the pool at about $1 a round.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, you can even upgrade to the Remington 700s, which tend to start at about $500. I know martinarmory.com had one for $500 when I was looking at it just a little while ago. So
yeah, I mean, I think one of the standards in the bolt action world is going to be the Remington 700, you know, and it's around that $500 to $600 mark. Like you said, one of the really cool things that's happened in the last little while is because of all of the craziness with the AR market, we found a lot of these gun manufacturers really kind of going back to their roots to a way, and they had some money to throw at some technology problems with bolt actions,
Hmm.
and they've been able to come out with these really decent rifles for a really lower in price. I mean, it's pretty impressive to see a rifle that's got MOA accuracy with a $400, $500 price tag. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And not only that, but consistent. It's well built. It's going to last you a while. The other cool thing about most of these rifles is that they come in multiple calibers. I know some of them come in 300 blackout, 223, 556, 308. They come in. Some of them are coming in 30-06 and different offshoot calibers that are kind of fun. But the cool thing about it is that they're all around the same price. I know some of these are also for a few bucks more coming in like 6.5 Creedmoor.
Mhm.
And so some things like this. But remember, I was talking about, thinking ahead, right? So my question would be, do I want a rifle that shoots the bolt action rifle that shoots the same caliber as my AR?
Mm-hmm.
So do I want to go with an AR-10 and shoot 308 and a bolt action that shoots 308?
Yeah, I think the only problem is you've gone out of the budget realm as soon as you start stepping into AR-10s.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that, and then also, the bolt action, do I want to do 556 like I have in my AR?
Yeah.
Because that's a possibility. And not only that, some of these rifles are threaded barrels on the end. So you could step up and put a suppressor on it if you want, and some other fun stuff. So, I mean, there's just a lot of really fun stuff out there right now. I'm really super excited.
Yeah, it has been amazing to see, since so many of these gun companies became so flush with cash during the Obama era. And in doing that, also were having to improve their operations or manufacturing processes to meet demand and maintain quality.
Right.
They've gone back and also fine-tuned and been able to match production level with quality. That we're getting some really amazing equipment out there that's made really well at some really low prices. I know we were talking about this. I was looking at AR prices now, and it was like even the AR I started with is now like $400 cheaper than when I bought it, and I didn't buy it at a crazy time. And it's like, good grief. And it's the exact same rifle.
Right.
And you don't see that, and you hardly ever see anything go down in price.
Yeah, it's funny to see that. There was a sale on some website the other day, and it was a strip lowers for like $29.99.
Yeah, that was insane.
It was insane. And it was, and it was a decent brand, it wasn't something crazy. It's really fun to see this, but I mean, welcome to the civilized world. Welcome to the free trade, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Supply and demand in America and technology. And we
just
all kind of meet up and crack a beer and toast and have a fun time. So, I mean, it's really a fun and exciting time. You've gotten to see a lot of companies invest a lot of technology and thought and process because they were flush with cash for a lot of the Obama era. And now we're getting to see kind of the fun side of that, right? They were able to branch out and do things that might have been a little bit more risky when things were tight. But now we as the consuming public have wanted these things, and now we're getting to see them come to fruition, and we're really kind of blessed by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into buying used guns, because I think this is really important. And I want to put two things. One of them I already said, but I'll say it again, which is most handguns on average have had 6 rounds put through them through their life. Most people aren't really shooters. They go, something spooks them. They go, you know what? I need to go get a handgun for home defense. They go to the store, they buy a gun, they buy a box of ammo, they go to the range, they shoot 6 rounds through it and go, all right, works. They take it home, put it in the nightstand or put it in a safe, and there it lives. And something happens. Maybe they pass away. Maybe they decide they don't like guns anymore. Whatever the reason is, now it gets out on the open market, and you have a used gun that is virtually new selling at used gun prices. And there's a similar thing with hunting guns. Hunting rifles tend to stay in families longer and stuff like that. But you're not talking, it's not like buying a used AR. A hunting rifle this is not a high round count style of rifle. You've got a similar thing. Somebody buys it, they go to the range once a year, right before deer season, to sight in their rifle. Maybe they shoot off a few rounds, taking a buck or two, and then it goes back home, back in the gun cabinet or in the safe until next year when the whole process starts over again. So you've got something that, for the most part, is probably pretty well taken care of, and you've got not very many rounds down the barrel.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing with like police trade-in guns.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, they go out, and most departments or agencies have a testing period for their officers like once or twice a year. It's like 40 or 50 rounds on average. And that's pretty much about all the round count they see.
Yeah,
hopefully,
most officers don't shoot that. Most officers really aren't shooters, which has always been a surprise to me. But
yeah, it's true.
It's a job, and to a lot of most of them, it's a job, it's a tool, and they stay proficient enough at using it.
That being said, not all, but some of them do take their time and take personal time out and spend time and effort going to the range, learning their craft a little better, or learning that part of their craft a little better. And there's a lot of officers out there that are really good with that. But typically, your standard police trading guns are labeled by quality and different things like that. So, but on average, it's a pretty low round count firearm as well. So if you can find a good deal on that, you can find the best thing about that is that they're standard style guns, right? So you're going to have something like a Beretta, a 92 FS, a Glock, a SIG, a Smith & Wesson M&P. These are all really good brands. And not only that, but the manufacturers are known for great quality, and they're going to have really good customer service. So if you get one of these things and somehow something's not working right on it or whatever, you can usually send it back. And that goes for kind of any firearm, really. Most manufacturers are really good about their quality control, especially the information age, right? So it's too easy to get online and post a bad review, and they don't like that.
Yeah.
So they'll do whatever they can to kind of keep that from happening. So I know Glock's really good with their customer service. A lot of times they'll just replace everything in it and send it back to you. There's different things like that. But yeah, you can go to a gun store and you can find used firearms that are going to be pretty budget friendly. But if you go in, look at them, and then if you're not sure about it or you're just not 100%, the internet's a wealth of information. You can go search for it, check out forums, read what people have issues with or whatever, learn what to look for that firearm, and then you can go and purchase it if that's what you want. But I also recommend buying from your local gun shop because they're the guys that are in your neighborhood, your community. They have the feel, they know what's going on, and they've got their finger on the pulse, right?
Yeah.
For your area. I really feel this way. I feel like we're too much of an online culture where everybody just wants to do business online. And because of that, a lot of brick and mortar stores are suffering, especially in the gun industry.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too is people have gotten into a bad habit of shopping purely price and not realizing when somebody has a physical store, that staff is there to answer those questions. And there's a bad trend. It's called showrooming, where somebody goes in and takes up the salesperson's time, 30, 45 minutes, an hour, asking 10 million questions. Okay, thanks, goodbye. And they go buy it from somebody else for, $10 cheaper online. And it's like, well, thanks. You just helped put that store out of business. You went in there, wasted their time and bought it somewhere else.
Well, and not only that too, but if you see a firearm online, right? And everybody knows this, but I'll just put it out there. But if you see a firearm online for some awesome price, remember, you've got to either pay for shipping. Sometimes shipping's free. And that's not going right to your door. That's most likely going to an FFL and some local dealer that you're going to assign to pick this firearm or to receive this firearm for you. And then you're going to have to pay that FFL a transfer fee.
Yeah.
Usually it's around $30 is kind of the industry standard. I've seen some as low as 25, some as high as 50.
Yeah.
There's one place that was $85. I'll never, ever buy from there again. That was a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, these guys, they need their money right. And as well, but they're a business, they're a brick and mortar store. They're there to answer questions. Like I said, they've got that technical knowledge for you. They can answer a lot of questions that you don't have or that you have that you don't know the answer to.
Yeah. And somebody's looked that gun over when you go into one of these stores. So it's a used gun, but you're getting something that somebody's looked over. And I think the other thing too is gun stores are great and everything. There are other options too. If you don't have one in an area, or if you're in an area where you've got a shitty gun store, because hey, that's also what puts gun stores out of business. There's plenty of gun stores in Houston I won't go back into because they're just a pile of dumbasses or they're just rude. And I'm like, you don't deserve my money. You can go on. There's people who are a little more advanced. You can go on a gun broker if you know what you're doing and know what you're looking for. You can look in the local newspaper. Estate sales can be a good place to find guns. If you've got somebody who had a nice gun collection and for whatever reason their family doesn't want to keep any of those guns, you can also some of the local forums and local sites. In-person sales, depending on your state and local laws and everything like that. I've done quite a few in-person sales. And I do want to give these caveats because it's a little scary for everybody the first time. Don't go meet in a dark alley. That's kind of rule number one. Meet in a public place. The best place to do that I've ever heard anybody give advice on, and then I started doing it myself, was I'd meet somebody in the parking lot of a gun store, because then two people handling a gun out in the open probably isn't going to raise a lot of alarm bells. Doing it in the Walmart parking lot becomes a little more clandestine.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing I personally do, because there is, at least in Texas, and this is the same in some other states, there's no background check. So the way I get around doing that is I don't buy from anybody in person, and I won't sell to anybody in person unless they have a handgun license, which means you've already been through all the background checks and everything else.
State and federal.
State and federal. Everybody's got your fingerprints. And I get them to send me a copy of theirs. I send them a copy of mine through email. And then I share that information with whoever needs to know that I'm going to go buy a gun. Here's the person's information if there's a problem.
That's good doing that beforehand. Yeah. That's better than saying, oh, yeah, I've got a CHL and just meet me here at this address and show up and, something bad happens. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Normally, I would just take a photo of it when I was there, but I've never really done that as far as people I don't know. I've done a lot of private sales between people I do know personally. Mm-hmm. That's how I've mitigated that risk for myself. If you're dealing with somebody that's a friend of a friend or something like that you don't really know, that's a good point. And the other part is I also write out a basic bill of sale, and that way with a signature and a printed name and a date, and that way if for some reason I buy a firearm from somebody and it comes back that this firearm was stolen or something like that, I can say, oh, well, look, I didn't steal it. Here's my bill of sale. It came from this person, or it was used in a crime. Yeah. I mean, who knows, right? But it's just good to cover yourself. Now, here's the deal. A lot of people advocate for this kind of thing in like gun control laws and stuff like that. But if you're a responsible citizen, you're covering yourself anyway.
Police yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. It's personal responsibility. And that's what I have to tell everybody is like, listen, there's no safety net in the real world, right? This is it. You are it. Your life, the way that you handle yourself, you are your own safety net. And that's the way it is in a free society. And you have to think ahead for these kind of things.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is like, even when you're talking about when you're exchanging the emails, you just hang on to those emails for 6 months or a year and toss them later. But now you've still got all their information in front of you. And that's my big thing with that. Cause I've probably done about 4 or 5 person-to-person transfers, and not with people I knew. They were strangers that I met through the different forums and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, I got this for sale. Oh, I want that. Like the Airweight, Smith & Wesson Airweight revolver that I hated that I sold, and sold it to a really cool guy. And we ended up hanging out and chatting for like 30 minutes, just talking about guns. And I think you'll see that often in a lot of the forums where people are like, no, if you don't have a handgun license or something, no, sorry, I'm only selling to, and I'm only buying from people that have that. And it's just a really nice way that the community self-polices.
Right. Well, the other thing too is gun shows, right? So you can go into a gun show, and any booth that's set up there, they are a business selling firearms. They have an FFL and they have to do a background check on you.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, they're just like, it's their weekend hobby. They go to a gun show and they pay for like a $35 booth, and they sit there and, they have like their own personal firearm sitting there. There's no law against that. You can't go up and buy something from that guy, or he can't buy something from you if it's person to person like that. He's not an FFL. But I have absolutely 100% seen guys at a gun show refuse sales to people. There was one, I'll never forget this kid. He just looked like a problem. He was wearing like a Jeffrey Dahmer t-shirt or something weird. And he just looked totally crazy. He got mad whenever the person at the gun show said, no, I'm not going to sell you a firearm. You're like, why? Like, well, look what you're wearing, dude. Like, I mean, come on, think about this. We have a conscience, right? There's federal laws that said they're not liable, but you have a conscience in the gun community, and we have a conscience, and we need to exercise that conscience and that self-responsibility and regulate ourselves and everybody else that we can. It's our duty to do that as Americans and as free-thinking people.
Dude, awesome. Thank you so much for dropping by again. Always fun to see you in person. We'll go have some Mexican food now. Hang out for a bit, have a beer, and we'll wrap it up for the day.
All right. Well, thanks. You guys take it easy.
Show notes, links, and resources from this episode can be found at intherabbithole.com/E231. Remember, check out martinarmory.com and use the checkout code RABBITHOLE for a little something extra. And several of the guns mentioned in this episode can be found there. Support the show and get members-only benefits. Like what? Like the Hurricane After Action Report video hang Josh mentioned early in the episode. A new member even told me I2RH should be charging more based on what he ended up finding in the members area. Visit I2RH ithurh.net to learn more. Again, that's ithurh.net. With that, we wrap up episode number 231 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.